3, 2, we are officially live. Hello, everyone. We are live on Facebook and the YouTube right in front of me. And over on the left-hand side, got everyone on the Instagram. We are officially live from the 317. And in case you're wondering, that is the area code for Indianapolis, Indiana. So we're just going to do a roll call, everyone. Going to start waiting for a few more folks to come in. Go ahead and drop where you are from just below. I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana, where it's very nice weather. It's a little bit rainy. I almost considered wearing flip-flops, and I wear flip-flops with socks, so I do not want to have wet socks. So go ahead and just drop below where you are from. And also, it would mean the world to me, those of you who are on the Facebook, for you to like, give those wows and give those ahas. Love seeing those. And then also to share the stream so more people can see this as well. And then those of you on the Instagram, those hearts, yes, that's right over there where my finger is pointing. Tap those as fast as you can. Like, let's make this a competition. I really like seeing those hearts come in, really gets me jazzed up. And today I did not have any caffeine, so I'm really not going to be over the top in terms of my energeticness. So appreciate everyone for being on these streams. Today is just going to be a live Q&A. I do have a specific subject too, but it's more of I am here to really deliver as much value as I can to all of you, especially during these times that we're currently facing. So I hope that you and your families are well during this time, safe and healthy. So on my side, everyone's healthy, and I feel during these times have brought more family of my family together. So that has been great from that side. And then also I'll keep you all updates on what's been progressing through my portfolio in terms of multifamily. So yeah, drop where you're from. We're just doing a roll call. I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana. So, all right. And I do truly appreciate everyone, especially today's Sunday. And I just found out earlier today that today is Easter. So that just gives you some context of, I don't even know what day it is half the time. And I feel over the past several weeks have slowed down, but there's been rapid changes. So that's just some context on myself. And I've been, as much as possible, mitigating the input in terms of negativity and putting in, all right, well, want to give a few shout outs. Hey, Adre from Vegas. I see you quite often. We've got official_Biggs. We've got Mark Tatata from LA, California. We got King Hato from Queens, New York, and I am going to be butchering names. So excuse me if I do butcher names. That is just going to happen. I apologize in advance. We've got King Moni from Detroit, and we've got Wilder Yassi from Argentina. Wow, we've got people from everywhere, from in the US and then also outside the US as well. So yeah, drop any questions that you happen to have, and I'm just going to give you some context on myself. If you're just wondering, who is this bald guy that is speaking in front of me? And actually, I do need to give it a nice little clean shave. One thing I do is I like to multitask, and didn't do it today. So when I'm in the shower, I brush my teeth and also shave my head at the same time. So just being that much more efficient. Would love to see who else has Team Ballhead. Comment below too. Hope I am not the other one. I'm not the only one. So born and raised Indianapolis, Indiana, not so good parts of the city where when you tend to drive through the neighborhood, you would lock your doors and then roll up your windows. Fraternal twin brother, grew up in Section 8 housing, felt welfare, food stamps, and I'm sure of any other type of government assistance my mother didn't tell us about. And we got the Tyler Chesser. Yes, Team Ballhead. Awesome. Nice, clean. And get a nice little glare too when you got that light that's beaming off of. So single mother, fraternal twin brother, and just anything above beyond just the standard living, had to figure out a way to earn money. So there was tons of illegal activity that was going on around me, but myself, I never gone into that. And just to give you one instance about the environment that we grew up in, one of the apartments that we lived in was known as the projects. And we lived on the bottom floor, both my brother and I and mother. And on the outside, there was cages. And I remember every other day we would just hear gunshots and we would have to get on the floor. And it was just one of those things that was very common that we knew that there's going to be some gunshots and that we're going to have to get down on the floor to avoid getting hit with the stray bullet. So through that, ended up using that as fuel versus being a product of my environment. And that's also one of my whys too, because I want to be a ideal for those individuals. And people who are just now jumping on here, it is a live Q&A. And so go ahead and drop any questions that you have. And I'm just giving everyone context of myself. And those of you who are on Facebook in front of me, it would mean the world to me for you to share this stream and then also give those likes and those give those wows. And then those of you on Instagram, keep hitting those hearts as fast as you can. I get super jazzed up from that. So got started real estate 2009, very similar times to what we are currently facing. And if you haven't seen my episode on BiggerPockets, it is episode 308. And so got started 2009 construction side. My roommate at the time saw I had some free time during the summers. I was in my little angel just sent me a message and asked me what am I gonna. She's 7 years old. What am I gonna get her for Easter? So I am going to ask her the same thing she got me for Easter last year, which was nothing. So I'm going to have to figure out how to get the little one something. But that's I'm going off tangent here. So yeah, started in construction 2009. That's when I fell in love with the real estate. Not so much being a laborer, getting my hands dirty, and providing. I was mixing the mortar, providing it to the bricklayers, and that's how huge grind. Great respect for those guys. That I knew I wanted to get more into the investing, where I was able to find a mentor and started working with or for that person for completely free, and was able to get my very first single family house at 23 years old, no money out of pocket. Actually thought I thought that in order to be in real estate that you had to have a large amount of cash, that it was only for the wealthy, and that you had to be older in order to be in the industry. But that very first deal was able to shatter all those limiting beliefs, and no money out of pocket. Actually had negative funds in my bank account because I just over withdrew it, just not being financially smart. And then also my credit score wouldn't even register when you would pull it. And those of you who are on the Instagram, my handle is Sterling White Official. One more time, that is Sterling White Official, Sterling White Official. And yeah, so was able to scale up to 150 single families. 2017 made the complete shift to multifamily and got portfolio of just under 600 units. Have since sold, exited out of all the single families, sold the 46 unit and 50 unit. So portfolio is just under 400 units. Why I'm telling you all that is just one, give you some context on myself in the event that you're wondering who is this bald guy in front of me talking about real estate. And one thing is the valuation of that portfolio is just under 20 million. And I still make mistakes to this day. I'm not perfect by any means. I mean, just one that I love to share with everyone is the other day I was shooting my podcast, The Real Estate Experience, and I had a guest on. It was an hour-long segment. 30 minutes into it, realized that I was not recording. So luckily the guest was very, what's that word I'm looking for? Was a phenomenal person. And we ended up shooting the front half of the podcast on the back half. So still make mistakes of that. And then also towards the end of last year, I closed on a 156 unit apartment. And on the front end, I was too aggressive on the rents. So made $1 million mistake where I was too aggressive, provided a verbal offer to the owner. This was closer to about $7 million. Sent it over, did additional due diligence, sent it over to the formal CEO amongst the communities that I have. And that she mentioned that, yeah, you're just a little bit aggressive in terms of about $50. So you think of $50 over 156 units times 12 months. So that just gives you some context that went back to the seller and was able to, with my negotiation ninja techniques, not ninja or anything. It was all relationship rapport, and then they were also motivated as well. That was able to get the reduction. But that's what I want to mention to everyone. I do experience shares on here that, hey, this is the path that I take in hopes or these experiences, insights that this is what I did in hopes that it could help you. But everyone has their own unique situations, paths, journeys in life. So what worked for me may not work for you, but it could in essence help you. So, all right. And someone says, can you drop your IG name again? It is Sterling White Official. And if someone could put that up here, I will go ahead and pin it. Is this the right time to start investing? Do you think that our situation now is similar to the 2009 recession? I would say it's always the right time to buy, as long as you buy right, finance right, and buy in great locations. And the most interesting thing that I have gotten from others in terms of just overall mindset, and I believe mindset is 90 to 95% of what is needed. And then the remaining 5% are the actual tools and tactics and techniques, because there's people that are saying this current time that we're in now that it's not the right time to buy. We're at the bottom of the market. There's so much uncertainty. And when we were at the top of the market, they were saying the same exact. So it's all about just one. If you stick to that criteria, and this is what I've learned, by sticking to those criteria, because during the formal recession that we were in, is that I wasn't an operator at that time. I was a laborer, so I was not feeling the actual effects. Now I am an operator of multifamily, so now I'm actually seeing and having to make necessary pivots and changes. So I do hope that that answers your question. And what I mean by buying right is not buying on, let's say you're in a market such as New York or California West Coast, where you're buying saying that you're accepting negative cash flow from day one, or let's say the first year, or first couple months, and that you're saying, okay, in the next several months or the next year, next 2 years, I know the property is going to go up in value, and then that's when I'm going to sell and start to make my money. So that in that way is I would consider not buying right, because I buy on cash flow. That's myself. I am a buy and hold investor. The second, finance right, is longer term debt and not a 1 to 2 year balloon, and then having a fixed rate. And then if you can have a low interest rate, that's even better. And then so just getting great financing terms, a variable rate, that could be something fixed rate. I would take that all day. And then if you're able to get a non-recourse loan versus recourse, and the difference between non-recourse loan and recourse loan is non-recourse, that if things hit the fan, that the bank doesn't come after your personal assets, they just come after the asset itself, the property. Not recourse is they can come after you. So that's what I mean by financing right. And then buying in great locations is just avoiding the war zone. So myself, last month, the experience is collections was good. Everything was over 90%. And what I mean by collections is the amount of rent that was collected. And these initial several weeks, really starting to see, I know people have starting to get their stimulus checks, and some people are actually making it towards rent payments, while other people are actually hoarding that in the event that they have lost their jobs. So far, no absolute red flags. Everything is closer to about 70%, 75% in terms of rent collected. So nothing too alarming at this moment. And the team has mentioned that it's just steadily being in the loop, and have had those conversations with the investors who have partnered with on the deals, and then also having the open communication with the lender as well, if that. But this goes into the front end, and I'm just doing another experience share, is buying right. So having a worst case scenario. So if these communities, I'm actually in the 80 unit that I have here in Indianapolis, that if it reaches 75% occupancy, that's a break even standpoint. But if it reaches that, then there's a whole nother slew of things that are going on. So just not being overly aggressive on the front end, on the underwriting, and just ensuring that you're conservative for times such as this. So if someone could put up that handle on the, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pin it right here, pin comment. I pinned my handle, so which is Sterling White Official, right? I'm about to, okay, we got, should we be buying or wait it out? So this was very similar to the top question. So myself, I am still in acquisitions mode. So I do the nurturing with brokers, but I've built an acquisitions team to actually go direct to owners, because I just haven't had results with going with brokers. They send over a deal. There was one deal, this was an 84 just over 80 units. That's on the very affluent suburb here in Indianapolis. My offer was just under $6 million, and I felt that was stretching just a little bit, but was willing to do that for that location. And the broker said this will sell all day, just over 8.5. So it's just not even close. So still nurture those relationships, because now there's starting to be just a tad bit of a softening, especially with the uncertain sellers aren't able to list their properties for what they formerly thought they could in terms of just even over top dollar, because buyers are just not able to come up to that, because now they're specifically, well, I don't want to go too much into the debt, but to answer your question is yes, now is the right time to buy, as long as you buy right, finance right, and buy in a great location. So I feel those that say they're going to wait it out, that once they do wait it out, that they'll find another excuse that it's not when we come out of this, and then maybe properties drop even lower, that they'll say it's not the right time to buy because they'll figure something out. All right. Can you talk about your first deal? So the very first deal that I put together, this was a single family house. This was the near east side of Indianapolis in a good pocket. So the thing about the Indianapolis market is suburbs are pretty good and very stable. But as you get closer to the city, not the downtown is definitely flourishing, but the urban core just outside of that, or there's another technical term that is for that. But that's where it gets very street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood. And you have to be zero-like focused and really have the boots on the ground and the knowledge. So picked a solid pocket on the near east side of town. And so that very first deal, my mentor, interesting enough, was looking to diversify and I like to talk with my hands. I have no idea. It's like I'm like gripping a basketball or something. And so he was looking to diversify from multifamily, interesting, to single family. Normally people do the other way, from single family to multifamily. And so at that time was working for him for completely free, working within this property management company. The value that I brought was he was more of an old school operator. So I was taking his rental units and his apartments and listing them on digital. So Zillow, HotPads, Trulia, Rent.com, ForRent.com. That's the exchange that was there. And then also he said, well, I would like to get into the single family home space, and it just happened to be the right timing. So at that time I was on Meetup. I was attending local meetups, telling everyone what I do, what I was looking for in terms of deals. I was on BiggerPockets.com. If you guys are not leveraging BiggerPockets.com, you are absolutely losing. I know I could have said that more softening, but that is a completely free tool. I know there's different pay plans and everything, but that is something where you can network online and bring it offline. You can find investors, you can find contractors, and it's all just about relationships, because you never know where that relationship will end up taking you. So that's exactly how I was able to build to now being a contributor, which I've gotten so much in terms of just the exposure. And it's always been a value exchange as well, because contributing the content, then they get more viewership. So that's one book, Jab, Jab, Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk, was an absolute game changer for me. And that is Jab, Jab, Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk. And that just talks about value, just from the marketing standpoint. And so the very first deal, found it through a wholesaler, sent the deal over. The purchase price was $25,000, and their estimation on Rehab was $15,000. And at that time, the math that I used was the 1% rule. So, and a 1% rule is if you're all into a house for $100,000, you expect to rent that for $1,000. And so in Indianapolis at that time, you can get some 2% rule in non-war zone areas, so working class settings. Now prices have since gone up, because this was in 2013 at that time. So that's what I use. So the wholesaler sent the deal over, and so I was driving for dollars. I was doing yellow letters. So I was doing all these various channels too before, and this is one lead generation source, or one channel that came through a wholesaler. So underwritten it, made sense. It had the 2% rule. So being all into it, $40,000. Expected rent was $850, and the ARV was between about $90,000 to about $110,000 at that time. It's even gone up even more. So it was a good deal. And then my mentor funded it and funded the purchase price and then also the rehab. And he said, Sterling, all right, go figure everything else out. So from there, I managed the transaction with the title company. Secondly, I started managing the maintenance team. I walked into that house during due diligence and had no clue what to even replace. Everything looked fine, just a little bit outdated, except the collapsing ceiling. I knew that was something that definitely needed to be fixed. So it was managing the contractors. And then once the rehab was completed, it actually ended up costing more than anticipated. Ended up costing $10,000 more, but still it was a good deal. So all in $50,000, actually rented for $850. Did the leasing, and then once the lease was signed, then that was so for that deal, he got majority equity. So I didn't take a wholesale fee. I ended up requesting to have equity. It was either 85 or 90%, and I had the minority. I've done a lot more deals than that, so I forget that specific equity structure. And one thing that I did experience, one was always trust but verify. So when someone, let's say it's a broker or an agent, sends you over the rehab numbers, to always do the necessary due diligence on it. Oh, and one thing, I was in this private chat the whole time, so did not see some questions on the YouTube. So thanks for coming in here, Emmanuel Vinoid. We got Johnny Fernandez. We've got, William Campbell. Got some people who are talking about house hacking. We've got Colin O'Neill. Awesome. Okay, so where was I at? I was talking about so always trust but verify is one thing. And then those residents in that specific property actually moved out and started subleasing. So that was a whole nother conversation in itself. But that's how my very first deal actually ended up coming together. So having grown up in those circumstances, why do you think your outcome is so different from most others who grow up in those circumstances? Wow. Pullman, that is a phenomenal question. I've never gotten that before. So my brother, unfortunately, took another path, a not so good path, and actually is facing hard time due to that, unfortunately. And I believe, I don't know if this is philosophical or whatever it was, but I was always just not inclined to go to, I've done some bad things as a kid, just nothing like too over the top, but I was actually going down that path for I was going down that path for so one thing, mother moved, actually, this is one thing that really helped. She moved both my brother and I out from the inner city out to the suburbs. We were still in low income housing, but it was a completely different change from the public schools to now township, which is suburban type schools. So one thing that really did help was a new set of friends in a new environment. And versus what did happen, and this is what they say is you're a sum total of the people you have around you. So I started a new group of friends. My brother went back to those old friends that we had in that environment. So I believe that is one thing that really helped me to steer off that path where I was going with, which is what most people take. And I've always been a little bit of the somewhat of a tweener in terms of, but yeah. So I was always the kid that was too educated to be around the, okay, I don't want to go down that path. Okay, so here we go. What is finance right? So finance right, well, we got a question here from Emmanuel. Right now I'm 15. Okay, awesome, great to see you on here. I'm 15, so what's the best thing I can do now to prepare myself for when I'm 18 to invest in property straight away? I read books and I'm learning from YouTube, but what else can I do? The path that I personally took was finding a mentor, and I started working for that person for completely free. Maybe there's an internship, because myself, I went to college, actually I am a college dropout, took chemistry 1 and 2 a total of 5 times, if that provides you some insight on that. School wasn't for me, but I was able to get better in real world experience from actually working for someone who was actually doing it versus going to school for it. But I was actually going to school for human biology degree versus investing. All right. So other question here. Big respect to your mother for getting you out of that bad environment. Yes, I'm actually getting a little bit teary-eyed just now think about that. I'm going to give my mother a call. She's awesome. Okay. All right. Having a little bit of a moment, you guys. All right. Let me go ahead and shift. Okay. Got some more questions that are here. All right. So one of the topics that I did want to cover today is just along the lines of just four of the dumbest mistakes I see investors make, or just common mistakes, for lack of a better word. So the first one is just being afraid to ask for help. This could be ego, or just essentially believing that that person is not going to be of assistance to you. So myself, when I made the transition from single family to multifamily, that very first deal I was able to get, so I jumped from single families straight to a 46 unit deal. Ended up, and this was found through Driving for Dollars, and pulled the public record. Every county has every county has every property or owner of each property, and it's public information. Saw it was owned in the LLC. You can see who filed the LLC, skip trace that LLC, and then gave that person a call. And so that's how I found my very first 46 unit deal. Very simple in terms of the process, hard to actually do the work, of course. And so for that very once ended up getting under contract, I reached out to 5, 6 to 7 others who had been there, done that as a multifamily operator and managing and just being in the apartment space. And I actually dropped in on one guy completely cold and said, hey, here's my business plan, here's my underwriting. And then also, I'm not the one that does the underwriting. I have a partner among the communities that I own that does the underwriting. And that one thing that also helped in terms of me being able to scale so quickly is having someone to complement my weaknesses, because I know what my strengths are, or I'm actually becoming more self-aware. And I'm on this huge self-awareness kick, and just understanding, and this is me being transparent to you guys, is understanding the childhood experiences and teenage experiences that shaped me to who I am now today, and just understand how I can leverage those. So let's say the strengths that I have, meaning that just going out there and not going direct to an owner, calling them, they hang up on me, I'll show up the next day in the office. So just being self-aware of the things that I'm really good at, and then also the weaknesses as well. And then also the blind spots are even more important. But when it came to weaknesses, underwriting, operations, organization, that was not so much my skill set, and I didn't enjoy that. Numbers, financials. So I ended up finding a partner to complement that weakness, and I complemented their weakness. They were more of an introvert. I was more of an extrovert. And one that loves going out and just talking to people. I can have a conversation with a complete stranger, versus him. He's more on the, I don't know about that. I'd rather just do numbers than in the spreadsheet. So I reached out to people who were in the space and just got their overall insights and insights on lessons that they learned from being operator. And then, okay, these are things you should actually dig a little bit further doing your due diligence. So just not being afraid to ask for help. And at the end of the day, even so much feedback that and insights that they provide, I still have to end up taking action, because no matter how many books I read or how many people I reach out to, at the end of the day, I'm just going to learn a lot by actually doing it. So there's that. And what I like to look at it is there is the 80-20 principle. So meaning that there is, when I made the shift from single family to multifamily, you can look at it as 100% of the things that you must know in the industry. And of course, you're constantly always going to be wanting to know more as you evolve. But I stick to specific, okay, there's 20% that I really need to know, and the rest is a little bit more of fluff. So that's what I apply is, okay, I've got the 20% here, and let me go ahead and just start taking action. So there's that. And let me go ahead and answer a few questions that are here. Are you okay? I had a goal to buy a house in 2020. I got 20K saved. Should I wait and save more? This will be my second home. So Def, you've been on here before. Great to see you, and I trust you and your family are well during this time. Myself personally, I will. Looking back, the cash that I started with, I would have invested that in myself so I can accumulate more skills to become more valuable to the marketplace. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, you can use that 20,000 as a down payment towards a property, but it's best to one, use OPM. Yeah, you're down with OPM, which is other people's money, versus using your own cash and invest that in yourself, so you can learn sales, negotiating, how to acquire deals, and yeah. So that is the path. The cash that I earn now, I invested in real estate, but I even invest more of it in myself. So that's just speaking from personal experience. Someone says, Rod W, Section 8, I want to do it, but my property manager not to guaranteed money. Okay, all right. That was not a, so we got over here. Look on the yes. Happy Easter for those who do celebrate it. Why is the public record so important? Public record is just a way to have access to information such as this property that I'm currently in, is to see who the owner of it is. I know there's various reasons why it's public information, but that's the main reason why I leverage it. Is if I want to find out who's the owner of 123 Main Street, I just go to the county, and then you can pull that. Normally it's owned in the LLC. So one thing that you can dig a little bit further is see who put together or drafted the articles of organization. And normally it's the actual owner or manager itself. Sometimes they'll actually have an attorney do it. But I would say about 60, 70%, it depends on the size of the operator, that they will do it themselves. And then you can take that name and then type it into something such as truepeoplesearch.com, or even Ben Verified, BEEN verified.com, to find out who the owner is, and then pick up the phone and give them a call. So that's one route that I take, is picking up the phone. You can send direct mail because those databases has their address as well. And by picking up the phone, it's a very simple call. So we'll just do a quick role play where it's person on the other end is Stacy. So we'll jump right into it. So ring a ring. And this is one thing I do role playing every day with my team. So it's ring a ring. Hello, Stacy. Sterling here. Did I catch you at a bad time? A lot of times they'll say, it depends on what this is. Completely understand. I know you get these types of calls all the time. The reason for the call is I just bought Bentwood Apartments across the street from yours and wanted to see if you can consider selling. A lot of times they say, I'm not interested. I knew you'd say that before I even called. Tell you what, give me 15 seconds. If you don't like what you hear, I'll hang up on myself. Sound fair? So that's a similar structure, how the call would go. There's always a greeting. There's always a reason for the call. There's the qualifying of the lead, just to get some engagement. If I were to offer the right price, then would you consider selling? That's just to get some back and forth from the other person. And then you go for the appointment, and then you go for the lock appointment. Once you do have it in there, and you say, if there is anything outside of a hurricane or a tornado that would keep you from attending this appointment, and they say, no, that'll be good, then you're good. Then that appointment is actually settled. So, all right, we got one, and also there's another question up here by. We'll keep this one up. But there's another question that says, if you use OPM, how do you structure the deal? So I want to go to that question after this one. How would you advise getting funded your first time? Never invested in real estate before, but I have cash saved and I have a great deal. How would you advise getting funding your first deal? I would go to a lender to get 70 to 75% of the purchase price, and then you use your own cash, or preferably someone else's cash, but you can use your own, because to each his own. That's one thing that I have to mention. Some people I syndicate, meaning, and also I scaled up single families, and then I transitioned to multifamily because I'm going more of a at scale and larger portfolio. However, and in order to do that, majority of the time is to leverage other people's money and do a syndication. However, some people just want to be in a situation where they want to own 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. That's completely different. That's completely fine. So that's one thing that I want to provide as context is for you don't have to use other people's money. You can use your own cash, and that is to answer your question. Is you said how about getting funding is you would put down a down payment, and then the remaining would go from a lender. So the other question is how do you structure? Oh, okay, perfect. If you use OPM, yeah, you down with OPM, yeah, you know that is other people's money. How do you structure the deal? What percentage do you give? So this is a very variable moving part, so many varieties and ways to structure deals that are out there. At the end of the day, you just reverse engineer what you want to get to your investor partners, and that allows you to determine the structure and the percentage that you give to them. Meaning, so if you want to give your partners, let's say a 10 to 12% cash on cash, and you want their internal rate of return to be anywhere between 16 to 20%, or in essence, double their money. And in order to do that, you need to give up 80% of the deal, and then you get the 20%. Then that's how you would structure that deal. So that is one route. It always just comes down to reverse engineering what you want to give to your partners. And especially if you're just starting out, you want to give as much as you can to incentivize them to keep investing with you. So I wouldn't want to be in a scenario that have the less, I wouldn't say limiting belief, but the wrong mindset to say, I don't want to give up too much. If it's your first deal, that very first deal I did on the single family, I had a limited amount of equity. So that's what got my foot into the door. So I wouldn't look at pennies versus nickels. I forget how that exact quote goes. All right, so let me look at another question that we have. We have quite a bit that are flying in here. I tend to overestimate my rehabs. Any tips? Is it you that is doing the actual walking of the property and guest, or having or putting the budget together? Because if it's you, then I would get someone else, a construction manager that has more extensive experience to provide you a quote, or get multiple what's that word I'm looking for? Not vendors, multiple contractors in there to provide you a bid. And then in there, you can give like a 10 or 15% miscellaneous on top of that. So that's a way is to get someone else in there. And it comes down to how much are you overestimating on your rehabs? Because if it's consistent, you've done, let's say, 10, 15 deals and you keep overestimating by 20%, then on the next deal, you just underestimate or just cut it off by 20%, or have a buffer of, okay, since I tend to always go over, I'm just going to put a 20% of, if you have your rehab is, let's say, 10,000, then you may want to have it as 12, 13,000 instead. All right. I understand you learn more from doing, but do you have 2 to 3 books you would recommend? I have a lot of books that I would recommend. First one is just starting with Mindset. One of my favorites that really took me on a different, my little one says happy Easter. I'm going to give her a call. So, guys, one of the books, well, one of the CDs that actually got me going was Lead the Field by Earl Nightingale. Absolute game changer. Because one thing, when I went on a completely different trajectory in my life, so I was at this boathouse, and I'll just give you all just a quick snippet in the SparkNote version. So I was out on this boat by myself. Beaming question comes out to me and asks me, Sterling, is this what you want to do with your life? So up until that point, I was just drifting into average land. So this was my early 20s. I had a lot of things that happened, pivotal moments in my 20s that really shaped me to where I am now. And so I answered that question, no, it's not. So cut off all my friends because they were not going where I believe where I wanted to go. I cut off the news, don't watch news. Of course, especially now, I want to be updated, but I'm not like all the way consumed by it. And I started on the journey of self-improvement. Came across Earl Nightingale, Lead the Field. That was and also Essence of Success. But I listened to his CD so many times because the thing was, I had so many limiting beliefs, and I know I still have some now, that I had to rewire a lot of my brain and my thinking. So that's where I would start with personally myself. And I'm just doing experience share. I never want to tell someone, hey, this is what you would do, because everyone has their own situations and circumstances. But starting with Earl Nightingale, Strangest Secret, and then Lead the Field. Another book that's really good is E-Myth by Michael Gerber. If you're looking to go into multifamily, there is Multifamily Millions by David Lindhall. And then also another book is Maverick Mindset. And those of you, go ahead and drop your favorite books below. I'm always looking for another good read. Another one that I read was Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. That was a great book, and it was a memoir of just his journey from, how he started the company Nike. And it's really good to where when they tell the story, it actually feels like you're there. It's a phenomenal book. All right. Using the BERT method, how risky is it? I've heard horror stories from Dave Ramsey and don't want to put my family in jeopardy. Any ways to counter the risk? I would say to get longer term debt. I know that Dave Ramsey, and I don't follow too much of his content, talks about just getting out of all debt. Myself, I'm close to, I would say, $8 million in debt. And that is good debt, which is paid down by others. So I would say in your scenario, as long as you're buying right and financing right, you will be fine, and buying in a great location. So the thing is, with 5 or 6 unit properties, what tends to happen, and this is why I am preferable multifamily and have multiple doors in one location, because in the scenario you have 50% occupancy, or you have two to three of those residents moving out, then you could get a little bit trouble in not having enough to be able to service that debt. And then also, if you're using a third-party property management company, that can be a little bit difficult too, because there's just not enough economies of scale there. So that is my question to that. I'm not too much of a Dave Ramsey fan myself. All right, that's just me personally. How do you run numbers to determine if a property is worth investing? So I look at just from the get-go before doing a deeper analysis. So I always do a surface level in terms of, okay, this is I always do a surface level underwriting, because looking at so many deals, so don't want to go in depth. So always looking at the cash on cash first initially, and then also the debt service coverage ratio. So for me, that has to be closer to 2. And that's just, you have enough cash that's coming in to be able to service the debt. And then also the cash on cash has to be double digits. So as long as it hits that, so there's various models to be able to run it. And this is another moving part. You can run the property. Okay, this is as is how it's running. And if I run it this way, this is how it would go. And then you would run another model that says, okay, I put in $1 million to this specific project, and now this is what it's going to look like in terms of my return on investment. And then years later, I'm going to pull my cash out, and then that's what it's going to look like when I pull all of it out. It's just going to be infinite because I have no money in the deal. So there's a variety of ways. One is I like to run the property on the T12, which is the trailing 12 financials, profit and loss. Okay, this is how it's currently been operating. I'll run the numbers on that. And then also I'll run the numbers on upside, because I like to see that rents are anywhere between about $50 to $75 in terms of being able to push that up. But then what do you do? Okay. I hear a lot of millionaires are made from them investing in properties with partners. Is it possible to do it all on your own? Yes, there is. And there's plenty of people who have done that. It's just about doing the research, finding those people, because there's tons of people who have done it, and just replicate their model that they have gone with. There's plenty of people who have done that. All right, so another question here. So many questions, and kudos to everyone who's on here too. And if you're just now jumping in here, my handle is just below Sterling White Official, and I'm just doing a Q&A. And I forgot to mention, those of you on Facebook, please give those likes, those loves, and those wows. Love seeing those, and then also to share the stream so more people can see this as well. And I'm just always just flaming. My hands are just going all over the place. All right. Are your tenants having problems right now paying rent in your multifamily apartments? Yes. However, it is not too, at this moment, it is okay. That person just really hit the gas for no reason. Interesting. That yes, some residents are having difficulties with paying rent, but at the end of the day, last month was good in terms of collections. This month is a little bit further behind. And there's one person, Matt Faircloth, and he did a video on a live the other day that was a great point that talks about a ripple effect, like a rock being thrown into the ocean, and then there's a ripple of things that happen. So first, people lost their jobs, and then they don't. Some people don't have they don't have the income coming in to be able to pay the rent, and then the paying of the rents, then the landlord's not able to pay the lender, and so it's all a ripple effect. So right now we're seeing a little bit of an effect, nothing too to be red flags or concerns right now. However, next month really could change. And I know there is that stimulus check in which people have been getting as well. So that's a good sign. Some residents are making that payment towards the rent, which is also a good sign. And some are, of course, keeping on to that because they know as a landlord cannot evict them. But at the same time, if you educate the resident, because one, at the end of the day, it's about having that open communication. I give a shout out to the team with as soon as everything, the news really came out, is they had that over communication with the residents to really talk through that. Hey, if you're not able to make payment, call us and we'll talk through things. So that's good when it's more of a relationship and you're able to build a rapport and understand, because the person will be more inclined to actually pay that money towards rent versus just hoarding it. So there's that. Yep. And for instance, okay. All right. What books would you recommend about property management? I believe there is a book, and if we could key that below, on property management myself, I learned it by actually being in my mentor's property management company, and that was the path that I took. And then also I was reading blogs on BiggerPockets as well, but no books. And now I just have a team that fully runs the property management side. Okay, more questions here. All right. Hey, Sterling. Hey there, Jensen. Always great to see you. Hope you and your daughter are safe. After you acquired your first property, how did you go about getting your second, third, and so on in terms of funds and financing? So the second deal that leveraged my mentor's cash and actually bought that right across the street. So that was the second deal. And then the third deal actually started and formed a new partnership. And with that was using friends and family's cash as more private money. And what we would do is we would buy 10 single family houses, renovate them, and then they're fully cash flowing. Residents are paying rent, and then would bring outside investors in, more of what you could say the Burr method. Bring outside investors in, they would get a return on their cash, and then the original investors would just go out and buy 10 more. So that's how it worked, and how everything was able to scale so quickly, and how the outside investors came in. Myself, I was the marketing, branding, and on the sales side, investor acquisitions. We're doing a lot of personal branding, being on podcasts. That was one route. Attending meetups, attending conferences. So one, starting with their power base. That's always good. Friends, family, friends of family. And then if you tap out on that, then that's when you go just outside of that to find people. All right. Would the time be? Okay. All right. How would you invest to $1 million you inherited? All right. So how would you invest $2 million you inherited? I would invest it in real estate. I'd invest a portion in myself and then a portion into a multifamily. All right, we've got a troll that's on here. Okay. Not very nice of that person, but it's all good. Okay. Hi, I just bought my first Burr and I realized I need way more money to fix the issues before I can get a tenant in there. What is the best way of acquiring a rehab loan? I just bought my first Burr and I realized I need way more money to fix the issues before I can get a tenant in there. What is the best way of acquiring a loan? It seems you may want to go get a construction loan or go through a hard money lender. Myself, I have not gone into that route. I've always invested or got either a improvement loan from the lender or raise the cash from investors for the down payment, in addition to raise the cash to take care of the improvements. So hopefully that works. Are you a realtor and on BP? Oh, no, that's a question for someone else. I was going to say, I am a buy and hold investor. All right, so yeah, we got quite a bit of questions. What's the best way to buy a first property using a LLC? That is a very what's the best way to buy a first property using a LLC? I'm trying to think in terms of how to answer that. You would just find a deal and then you would buy it, and then on the back end you would finance. I'm trying to think. It seems I would go on BiggerPockets.com and do some more foundational knowledge in terms of for that specific question. So, all right, let's go ahead and see if we can kick this person from the group. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Well, I would say everyone, thanks so much for being on here. And yeah, on Tuesdays, I also do this stream as well, and now doing it at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And those of you who are revisiting this at a later point, don't ever hesitate to reach out to myself or the BiggerPockets team. We're here to be of value to you, especially during these times that we're currently facing. So be safe out there. Keep being an awesome human being. And one book recommendation I would give to everyone too is Extreme Ownership. I do that, have that as a note here. But that's one thing I have learned myself is taking ownership of everything, and that everything is my fault at the end of the day. And that just allows me to have more accountability. And at the end of the day, it's just not taking the victim mentality, taking more of a empowering one. So I appreciate everyone who's on here. Have a great day and enjoy your holiday, those of you who do celebrate this. So thank you, everyone on the Facebook, and thank you all over there on the Instagram. Have a great one. Thank you. All right.